Okay, so have you noticed? It seems like AI is everywhere these days, constantly doing something wild. I mean, ChatGPT is composing music now. There's AI art that looks like it belongs in a museum. It's exciting stuff. But it also kind of makes you wonder, right? If we're going to have AI in all these important roles, how can we be sure it's doing things the right way? And that's what I really want to get into today. We're doing a deep dive on a research paper. And get this, it's called Getting from Generative AI to Trustworthy AI, What LLMs Might Learn from Psych. And it's by Doug Lennott, the psychic, and Gary Marcus, who you might know is a bit, shall we say, skeptical of the whole LLM hype train. So, interesting combo right off the bat, which is always fun for a discussion. Look, we're not here to crown a winner in some AI cage match today. What we're after are the paper's key takeaways on what actually makes AI trustworthy, because that's what matters in the long run.
And one of the things they lay out is this really fascinating framework of 16. Get this. 16 essential qualities of trustworthy AI.
16. They weren't messing around, were they? But they're right to set the bar high. We're talking about AI that could reshape, well, practically everything.
It really gets you thinking, what would it take for you to totally trust an AI with something important? It's not just about spitting out the right answer, is it?
Not even close. Imagine, like, an AI is your new coworker, right? You wouldn't blindly trust them with every decision, would you? You'd want to know how they think, how they got to their conclusions.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Especially if you're both working towards the same goal, you got to be on the same page.
And that's one of their big points, this idea of explanation. Trustworthy AI can't just give us the what, it's got to explain the why. And not in some way only it understands, but something we get, humans, something traceable, even auditable if we need to. They give this example of a doctor using AI for diagnosis. You can't just blindly trust that. The trust comes from knowing how it got there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a world where we're all cool with AI making life or death calls without any transparency into its reasoning.
Right. And it goes way beyond healthcare. Think finance, legal stuff. Explainability is absolutely crucial.
Absolutely. So we've got explainability. What else is on this trustworthiness checklist that really jumped out at you?
One that's super relevant in our world of constantly changing information is diffeasibility.
Diffeasibility. Okay, tell me more about that.
Basically, it means AI needs to be able to say, whoops, my bad. Admit when it's wrong. Just like us, it needs to adapt, take in new info, and maybe even change its mind. Even something simple, like a meeting time-changing device. If an AI is stuck on old info, it's not a very useful colleague, is it?
Man, that's a really good point. We all mess up. We all need updates.
Yeah.
If we want AI working with us, it can't be stuck in its ways. Got to roll with the punches just like we do. I like that a lot.
Yeah, flexibility is key. And probably the most important thing of all, this AI has got to be explicitly ethical.
Okay, yeah, we got to unpack that one. What does it actually mean for an AI to be explicitly ethical?
It's not about some Hollywood robot uprising, thank goodness. It's about making sure the AI operates within a clear, well-defined ethical framework. One that we set, that we understand, and that we can audit. It's about making sure its actions align with our values.
That makes a lot of sense, especially with all the talk about AI bias and all that. But it also sounds crazy difficult to actually achieve.
Monumental, honestly. But see, by laying out these, what they call desiderata, these qualities, it's like they're setting the gold standard. This is what truly trustworthy AI could be.
So it's kind of like a roadmap, even if we don't know the exact route to get there just yet.
Exactly. And the cool part is they don't just point out the problem. They actually offer up a potential solution by contrasting LLMs with this whole other approach, a system called Psych.
All right, now we're getting to the really interesting stuff. We've all heard about ChatGPT and its bag of tricks, but Psych has been around for decades, quietly doing its thing. So what's the deal with Psych? What makes it so different from these LLMs that seem to be popping up left and right?
It's a totally different beast, really. Like, if you think about it, LLMs are kind of like, I don't know, those sponges, just soaking up tons and tons of data, text, code, whatever they can get, and figuring out the patterns in it all. And don't get me wrong, they're amazing at what they do, like mimicking human language, writing code even. But Psych's more like, how do I put this? It's like one of those master crafts people.
Oh, I like that. Master craftsperson.
Yeah. They've spent decades carefully building and refining their skills, their knowledge.
So instead of just, like, gobbling up everything in sight, Psych has a very deliberate, thought-out approach to learning and using information.
That's it. Instead of relying on these massive data sets, it's built on a foundation of handcrafted knowledge, carefully curated, meticulously coded by experts,
They're handcrafted knowledge. That's a pretty big contrast to how LLMs work, huh? What's that look like in practice?
All right, so imagine you're teaching a kid about the world. You wouldn't just hand him a dictionary and be like, good luck. Okay. You start with the basics, the simple rules. Water is wet, you need air to breathe, that kind of thing. Things we just get, but they might not be spelled out in some textbook. Psych is built on millions of these, what they call rules of thumb, these logical statements about how stuff works, and they all connect to form this like intricate web of knowledge.
So it's almost like psych has this deeper understanding of how everything fits together, the underlying meaning, whereas LLMs are really good at recognizing the patterns, but maybe not always the why behind them.
Nailed it. And it's that deep understanding that lets psych do something LLMs have a really hard time with, actual reasoning.
All right, let's talk about this reasoning engine. How does psych actually use all this handcrafted knowledge?
Well, think about it. It's not just a static database, right? Psych can actually make connections between different pieces of information, draw inferences. It can even weigh different sides of an argument. It's kind of like, remember those pros and cons lists you make when you're trying to decide something? Like where to go on vacation. You list out all the good and bad stuff, the cost, the weather, all that, to try and come to a decision. Psych's reasoning engine is kind of similar, but obviously way more complex. It uses its massive knowledge base and all those logical rules to reason through these complicated problems.
It's wild. It's like psych has this whole debate club happening in its digital brain, constantly weighing different perspectives and possibilities. But all this reasoning with millions of rules and connections, that just sounds incredibly computationally expensive. Wouldn't it take like forever to reach a conclusion?
Well, it could be right. But the folks behind Psych, they've thought of that. They've spent decades literally making it more and more efficient. There's some really clever stuff going on under the hood to keep things humming along, even with all that data and complexity.
Okay, good to know they've got it figured out.
Yeah.
So we've got LLMs over here, crunching patterns like crazy, and then there's Psych, our meticulous logician, taking its sweet time to reason things out.
But,
Okay.
and this is the big question, could they like team up? Could these two very different approaches actually work together to create something even better?
That's what I'm talking about. And the authors, they dive right into that, suggesting these really cool synergies. One idea is using LLMs as like research assistants for psych.
Ooh, now that's interesting. How would that work exactly? So we know LLMs are good at gobbling up tons of data, right? So instead of just mimicking, what if they use that power to help psych expand its knowledge base? It'd be like giving our master craftsperson a whole team of apprentices to go out and find interesting materials, new techniques, all that potential new rules of thumb for psych to consider.
Love that. It's like using one tool to sharpen another, but could it work the other way around too? Could psych help LLMs with some of their shortcomings?
You bet. Remember how we talked about LLMs sometimes going off the rails, making stuff up, getting things wrong?
Yeah, I think we've all seen that happen.
Right. Well, picture this. Psych is like the LLM's inner voice of reason. Before it goes blurting something out, Psych does a quick fact check, make sure the logic holds up.
So it's like a built-in BS detector and logician all rolled into one, making sure the LLM stays grounded.
I like it. Exactly. And this ties into one of the most exciting possibilities, explainability. Because Psych shows its work, every step of its reasoning, it brings a level of transparency that these black box LLMs just don't have.
And we talk about how crucial that is for trust, especially for things like medical stuff, financial decisions, where you need to know why.
100%. So combine Psych's transparency with the LLM's ability to process and communicate like us. We might just end up with AI that's not just more accurate, but more understandable, more trustworthy.
It's like this deep dive gave us a peek into a future where all these different AI approaches, each with their own strengths, can actually work together to create something truly amazing. It's that whole two heads are better than one thing, Or in this case, maybe two AI architectures are better than one.
And that's what's so cool about this kind of research. It gets you thinking beyond what we have now and into what's possible. It reminds us that the future of AI isn't about one winner taking all. It's about finding those connections, those synergies, to build something truly trustworthy, something that benefits everyone.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. Definitely a lot to think about. What really stood out to you? Let us know. We're always up for another deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep learning.